Hi, I'm Robin Forster with FeelSoAlive and FeelSoAlive Informed. And I wanted to thank you for joining us today, whether it's live or on the replay. And I am really excited. Being a solo entrepreneur, I'm always trying to figure out how I can give back. And one of the ways is by having a business, a professional person who is also a solo entrepreneur, share some of their tips. And today I am very excited to have Jamie Young here. And she is the swagologist, which just cracks me up. But wait until you hear about what she has going on. And just real quick, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She is the founder of Jamie Young Swag and Strategy, creator of the Swag Strategy and Sales Formula, and events director for the Portland Women's Expo. And she lives to help her clients be more generous, stay top of mind, and boost their business. And I'm going to let Jamie tell you the story of where she started with this to where she is now because it's really fun. So, Jamie, say hi to everyone.
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you so much for having me, Robin.
Oh, I appreciate you making time for us. And so, the first thing that I want you to share with everyone is where you started from in the hospitality industry and how that got you to where you are now, and where is it that you are now?
I started out in hospitality, restaurants and hotels. I really thought I would like spend the rest of my life working in restaurants and hotels and running them. And the day that I got my dream job, I was promoted to general manager of my very own hotel, which I worked so hard for. I gave my 30-day notice. Because I was working 60 hours a week or more. My phone was ringing at 2 a.m. And when you're in the hospitality industry, it's 24 hours. And that brought me stress. And so I left and I got a new job in marketing and advertising, which was very new for me because the sales world and hospitality are very different. But when you bring them together, you get me. um, I did I went through a big transition in my life in 2013 and I had to take on three part-time jobs. And one of them was the Portland Women's Expo. I answered an ad for a part-time sales assistant position. I was already working at an insurance firm a couple days a week and I was teaching fitness classes and um, long story short, during this big reset transition at 32 years old, I fell into my dream job, which was running the Women's Expo. Within 2 weeks, I was promoted. I was the events director. Like, I don't think any of us thought that was going to happen, but I really loved what I was doing. And I really loved to help vendors grow their business and see an ROI. And my hospitality side of me, treating everybody like a guest, really kind of I think helped me in that position.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you're right. In the entertainment or the hospitality, sorry, business, you're trying to be very warm and gracious and welcoming, and that is a little different than sales.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
went to like a cold call, one call close. In that company, we weren't allowed to do follow-up calls. It was one of those environments of like, you don't buy it now, I'm calling you competition. So it was a very different world. I avoided using terms like that. I just like allowed them to say, yep, we'll get back with you. And then I would just call the next person on the list. But um, I didn't use those hard tactics. I think I just came to it at a point of just professionalism because they're either interested or they're not, or they see value or they don't see value. So just showing up how they needed me to show up.
Nice. So I can't wait until you weave that into where you are now because that's going to be very
Ah,
fun. Okay, so you told us a little bit about how you got drawn into this line of work, but you didn't tell us how you started your own business.
well, we haven't talked about promotional products yet. We haven't talked about gifts and marketing and branded promotional products because during my time at this large trade show, I learned very early on that if my vendors don't have a great experience, they don't experience a return on their investment, that I have to work really hard the next year to replace them and still grow the show. And so it makes renewals easier, right? Each year your job gets easier and easier. So I took that event from 12% renewal to 70% renewal in about 7 years, 7, 8 years.
Wow.
And as the new girl, I was tasked with having to call every single vendor after the event to see if they'd like to book or save their spot for the next year and pay for it. And what I learned in those calls is what made that big difference was those who didn't have a great event, came to the event with no goals, no expectations other than brand awareness. Right? So now when I hear someone doing something purely for brand awareness, that's not enough. You can't measure brand awareness. So the vendors that were renewing on the spot 12 months in advance, paying in full for their same exact spot, who saw incredible results, I had to ask them, well, what were you doing? What were you doing in your booth? What were your goals? What were you there for? And they gave me gold. They gave me gold for me to share with vendors who didn't experience great results so I could give them a plan. And I was getting immediate renewals from vendors that did not have a great show, that now saw an opportunity to come back with a plan to be successful. And what it was to identify one, you need an engagement plan, right? When you're the most boring person at a trade show, like you're at a consumer event and you're a realtor or a mortgage broker, nobody really wants to come talk to you. Like you could have the best smile in the world, but people are, it's awkward to say, so how are you doing, right? Because it's your job as a vendor to engage them. But you also need measurables, right? Email addresses, social media follows, etc. So we figured out what their goals were. How did they want to market themselves? So if emails were important, that was the major goal. That was the ask. That was the ask. How do you incentivize people to give that to you? So that's usually a game, right? And then I would make recommendation for promotional products, right? This was a women's trade show. I'm female. I was 32 at the time. And so I just told them what I would want. Give them cool branded nail files or a pocket mirror or something that's going to float around in my purse for a year, right? So I would just make these recommendations and then, well, they just go buy it online. I mean, that's the option, right? But that didn't bother me because I wasn't a broker of promotional products. I just had a show that I wanted them to be a part of. So fast forward 6 years, I ended up getting remarried, and my mother-in-law was a promotional products broker who was getting ready to retire. And she kept saying, Jamie, I'm getting ready to retire. I want to give you my business. And I'm like, whoa. She's like, you'll be so good at this. I'm like, here's the deal. I have a job that I love. I'm totally fine. I was not interested. And this went on for a couple of years. She drugged me to a supplier trade show. Within 30 seconds, I knew I was getting in the business because this supplier trade show, the very first vendor was a supplier of trade show banners and tablecloths. And the next one was event giveaways. And I'm like, I already do this, but I send the business to other people because I make these recommendations. And so I still had a full-time job. So it was fine because this was just going to be a side gig. So at nights I would go to some networking events, nights and weekends and lunch breaks, I'd place orders and do quotes. And at the 10-month mark, I had to go to my boss and ask to cut back 2 days a week because I had so much business coming in. And my husband was having a hard time with me working nights and weekends. I had a new baby at home. So the exact 1 year mark of opening my business, I went to my boss at the Women's Expo and I said, I don't want to quit. I love what I do, but I can't be responsible for day-to-day duties anymore. So how do you like keep your job, but like not do your job. And we came up with an arrangement where I hired an assistant to do my daily administrative duties, and he hired my company to basically be responsible for booking vendors. And I did it for 2 years. We just did our basic follow-up emails, and yeah. Anyways, so
Wow. Well, what I'm thinking is that's helping us to figure out how you got to where you are.
yep,
And and with your business now, you've had to pivot because of, COVID, and no one's doing events. So how did you pivot your business? And then if you could share after you do that, share some tips and techniques that folks can take away, given that no one's doing events, and if they are, that's really small and 6 feet apart and all that good stuff.
yeah. Well, COVID really forced me to transition my business in a way that I've needed to do for a very long time. So there's one it's one thing. So there's two parts to what I do, right? Here are promotional products, which are hard goods, but then there's strategy, right? Because so many people are like, well, what's the best swag for my business? What do I do with it? I don't think I can afford it. And I always want them to think of useful, unique, and unforgettable, right? So I pivoted into strategy. That's when product sales couldn't sell because literally those manufacturers were shut down, people were coming to me for strategy. They want to know what's the best product, how do I earn new clients, renewals, referrals. And so those were the conversations. So my clients were hiring me for strategy. So a couple tips that I do have is make a list of your top 10. Okay. Your
Top
top
10.
10 warm leads, right? Your top 10 clients. And I want you to reach out to them in a non-sales fashion, purely generous, purely wanting to just check in, see how you're doing, just drop a message in your box. Just let me know how I can support you, right? This can be anything from a handwritten note to actual branded merchandise. Every time I do it, I get a new client. I did it in April when my business was basically shut down, and I got a $15,000 sale out of it. It happens constantly. So pick your top 10, show up generously in their mailbox because nobody else is right now.
Interesting. I
That's
like
gift marketing. That is gift marketing. It's a form of marketing, but it's a generous form.
And that's one of the things we all need to do. I've been talking about on my Instagram lives in the morning about compassion and intention and things that we need to look at being compassionate with ourselves and self care. And then what you're talking about, I can see that's just a matter of outpouring of our compassion and self care for ourselves, then to others also, so that we can attract the kind of people that we want. Is that kind of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And think back to the last time you got a handwritten letter in the mail. How amazing did that feel? Right? It was a cost of time and a stamp. So just think about things like that and show, there are ways to grow your business in that same fashion.
Interesting. Oh, Jamie, this has been absolutely fabulous, but I'm watching the time and we're going over, and I know you have another commitment, so I don't want you to be late, but any last quick, really short, fast little things that you want to leave for everyone?
Yeah, reach out to me if you just want to find ways to show up generously. That's easy for you and thoughtful to your clients. I would love to support you from right where you're at over at
Nice.
Amy Young's Swag and Strategy.
Excellent. And are you thinking about doing a Zoom webinar Q&A at some
You know,
point?
I have a workshop that's coming up. I don't have a date set for it other than it should be coming up here in the next month or two. But this is actually going to be a workshop where you could come, create your plan, and figure out the best swag for your business, the strategy to attach to it to create results, which would be getting new leads, converting warm leads, renewals in your business with an actual plan and strategy. And there's going to be bundles available. So you can actually say, I want bundle number one. Everything's going to show up to your doorstep. So you can deploy the gifts and start growing your business.
Nice. Okay, and before we go, I'm watching the time and I'm going, oh no, just 2 more seconds. One of the things I was asking you, because I've been looking at your catalog and your website, and there's some stuff that's really appealing to me, and I'm very much in the green world, so looking at plastic is a big turnoff for me. But you've got some great green things,
Yeah.
but I don't want to buy 3 truckloads.
Neither do
So,
I. Suppliers that will allow you to order as few as 12. If you're looking at more gift type items, you can get one-offs for sure. But in terms of the typical promotional products and branded merchandise, you can get 12 of them or 50 or 25 of them. Absolutely.
nice. And that's just a matter of talking to you, saying, "Ooh, I fell in love with something, but I don't want to buy a truckload,"
Yeah.
and just okay. Well,
I'm
Jamie,
basically a
again,
personal shopper for branded custom promotional products.
okay. Sorry, I was just looking at the Zoom window to find where I could turn off the recording, and I couldn't even see that it was recording, so I started to panic. So.
We're still here.
So I apologize, but there's always going to be a hiccup. That's just life these days. So, Jamie, thank you very much for your time. I appreciated this.
Thank you, Robin.